Do you ever feel like you're either running on adrenaline or completely flat and empty? Well, that's your nervous system talking. And in this video, I'm going to explain why this happens and, more importantly, what you can do about it. Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm a qualified breathwork and somatics coach. I have over 1,000 hours of training, and I've taken over 100 women on the journey to learn how to manage and regulate their nervous systems so they can start to show up more for themselves and for other people. So let's start by talking about what the nervous system is. Well, the nervous system is composed of the central nervous system, you sometimes see that referred to as the CNS, and the peripheral nervous system. Guess what that's referred to? Yep, the PNS, you got it. Okay, and the bit we're more interested in is the PNS, because part of the PNS is what's called the autonomic nervous system, and this is things that happen automatically without us having to think about it. Stuff like our heart beating, breathing, and our digestion happening. Now, out of those things I just mentioned, there's one thing we can actually change, and that's our breath. And this is why both breathwork and somatics are incredibly powerful in being able to regulate the nervous system. And that's what I'm going to show you and explain on the next 2 or 3 videos, so stick with me. So let's talk about why regulation matters and why it's important. And for this, I just want to quickly explain a concept called the window of tolerance. You'll see on my board behind me here, I've got 2 lines drawn, a top line and a bottom line. And our nervous system throughout the day, we're operating within these lines. Our nervous system automatically will go up and down, up and down. This is a healthy nervous system that can flex between a more up state and a down state very easily. We don't operate like this, so a healthy nervous system does this. You'll see the wavy blue line is the healthy nervous system in between the 2 lines. Now, when we become either very overwhelmed or stressed or very anxious, we get something more like those sharp lines at the end, these lines here. And what's happening here is we're popping above the top line. This is called hyperarousal. This is when we start to get very stressed or anxious or overwhelmed, and we get sweaty, palpitations, we shake, we can't think clearly, our brain starts to flit all over the place. This is called hyperarousal. And then below the bottom line is when we start to feel numb, disconnected, like we can't feel, like we're not really quite there. And maybe you recognise either or both of those signs. Maybe you've had, a day where you've been rushing from one thing to the next, great big long to-do list to complete, and you just feel like you're never going to get through it, and your heart starts to get really racing really fast. Your brain can't focus. You're all over a place. This is hyperarousal. And maybe after a day like that, you get home and you sit down and you start to scroll on your phone, not really looking at what you're scrolling, not really feeling anything, just scrolling. And this is when we're starting to disconnect, it's hypoarousal. So what I'm going to show you and teach you over the next few videos is how we first connect with our body so we can feel when we're getting to hyper or hypoarousal. And I'm going to show you some techniques to take action, either when you're starting to feel a little sluggy, lethargic, like you're starting to disconnect, so we can start to bring ourselves into a more aroused and up state, which can also be really useful when we've got things like maybe an important meeting to do or an important event to attend. We might want to feel a little more up. And then when we're getting to the top line and we're starting to feel very over aroused or anxious, I'm going to show you a technique that will start to bring that arousal level down. And the idea is that through practice over time, we start to get a more flexible hinge so that we're able easily to go from a more aroused state to a relaxed, to an aroused, to a relaxed, rather than this great big peaks and troughs. So this is what a healthy nervous system looks like, just this gentle undulation. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to feel where we are in our nervous system state. And this is a technique called felt sense. This technique takes a little practice. It'll be in the next video. It's about a 10-minute video. So to start with, you'll need to spend the time to really understand it. And I say this from experience. When I first learned this technique, I completely did not get what was going on. They were saying, connect to your body. What do you feel in your body? And I just was thinking, I don't know what I feel. I can tell you in my brain what I think it is, but I can't tell you with immediate sort of intuition what I'm feeling. So with practice, we can do this really quickly, and literally over time, I've been doing this practice for now 5 years or so on a regular basis, and now I can just literally do that, and I can feel where I am in my arousal states. So you will be able to drop into this really quickly over time, the more you practice it. And it's such a powerful technique because it enables us to intervene before we get to over-aroused or before we start to get to numb and disconnected. We can intervene and take action. This is why it's so important to practice, and the first thing that I'm going to show you. And the greatest thing about this felt sense practice and this window of tolerance understanding is that the more that we practice this feeling and the more we practice our techniques to start to bring ourselves up and down when we need, we actually expand our window. So I'll give you an example of this. I've built my business over the course of the last 5 years or so, but for the 2 years I was actually working inside a big corporate at the same time as building my business. I would not have been able to do this. I would not have been able to hold down a quite demanding corporate job whilst building my business over weekends and evenings if I was not able to regulate my nervous system effectively. I just would have burnt out or crashed. And I'm not saying that it's been easy doing it. It absolutely hasn't. There have been times when it's been, really damn hard work, but it's really worth it. And I've been able to do it with joy, with pleasure, by enabling myself with these techniques to be able to regulate my nervous system when I felt I needed it and to release stored stress and tension so that the next day I could go again. And over time, I can now handle a much bigger workload and much bigger capacity than I used to before I learned these techniques. Okay, so this is why nervous system regulation is important. Stick with me on the next video. I'm going to actually show you the first technique to how we actually drop into our felt sense so we can start to feel where we are in terms of this window. So I will see you in the next video.